Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And thanks for listening. We really appreciate everyone that's reached out to us recently and expressing interest and support for our little weird show that we do.
Yeah, it's definitely growing and getting better and have lots of cool stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, coming down the pike pretty soon here. If you guys ever feel like reaching out to us, you can find us at ittasteslikeburningcast at gmail.com. You can find the audio podcast on YouTube, and you can search for It Tastes Like Burning. I do recommend adding podcasts there. And if you're feeling extra spicy or have a sticker issue and you can't get enough of them, then go ahead and give us a subscription, and they're on Patreon, and we'll send you some stuff.
Yeah. The amount of feedback we've been getting lately, and we do have a Facebook now. It's not in our little list of things that we talk about, but there is a Facebook out there. I probably screwed it up and did the wrong kind of Facebook, but we're going to just roll with it because it's not that big of a deal. We're not.
What's it? How do you find it?
I click on the little Facebook icon on my phone and it takes me straight to it.
Excellent.
So get my phone and just click on that. Let's see here. I bet you I can click on it's at It Tastes Like Burning podcast on Facebook. So that's becoming ever more popular and getting a lot more followers and stuff on there. So just kind of did that on a whim here a little bit back and more as a local thing and it's surprisingly getting a good amount of followers starting to build on it. So lots of stuff happening in the world, Matt. And
oh, yeah. Big, small, grand, terrible. It's all there.
it is all there.
And it is also spring in Texas, so we're diligently watching the weather.
And infinitely allergic.
Yeah. I actually have been under the weather for about a week now, just due to the awesomeness of spring Texas allergies. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe next year they'll finally get better and go away.
Oh, they usually do around November.
And then besides dodging allergies, we have tornadoes. Appears most of the spicy action's been, unfortunately, for everyone in Kansas and Iowa and Nebraska last couple of days.
And there was evidently one yesterday somewhere around Frost, Texas, which isn't terribly far from here as the crow flies.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Only good thing about that is there's not a ton of people out there.
Yeah.
But even if it's just one house or ranch, it's still detrimental to that person. So,
yeah. So we've talked on the podcast several times about kind of marketing and your message and how you're recruiting people, and we're in the thralls of a full-fledged marketing campaign. We've talked before, and we'll run through kind of what we did, but several years ago, about 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, we hired a marketing firm 2 years ago. Year one was just establish a website, establish a presence on the old interwebs there to have a 24-hour intake function for applications. That was the main goal of that, was to eliminate the need for somebody to find somebody at the station.
right. Well, it's a landing point.
Right.
You've got to have something that people can find you, and let's be realistic, it's a digital society, and anymore when people are trying to find something, they go to the Googler first, and they're going to Google about you. And it would be significantly beneficial for you to at least have a web page up that people can land on and find a little information about the organization. Now, the kicker to that is, and I would add this, is your web page, if you have one built, is it built for recruiting, or is it built to tell people about what type of axles you have on your fire trucks? To me, that's real important to be able to differentiate between what you're actually communicating. Because if you're telling everyone you need people and you can't figure out why they can't apply, and your main entry point for your worldwide message is telling everyone about the difference between your split shift 1980 GMC 3500 and your newest engine, you might be just a hair off point there. And get your applications up there. Make sure that people can apply. The follow-up part of that is that please make sure that you actually are following up with that. That it's just not this empty place where people are sending emails and no one's ever checking it.
Yeah, no one's ever checking it. And we get a reality check every now and then. We've had that for a couple years. We went through a little spell here recently where we were getting applications and we were just losing these people and they weren't becoming members, right?
Right.
And so there's always a certain amount of that. There's folks that don't pass a background check, or there's somebody that applies and doesn't realize, that you've got to do something. It's not just a hold a sign and look pretty kind of deal.
Right.
Or, and then there's the time constraints and the training constraints, or somebody's schedule just flat doesn't work. There's not an ability for them to make training to ever become productive as a member. That stuff happens, and there's, through no fault of the organization or the individual, it's just those weren't meant to be. But to lose the ones that are good prospects that are coming into that system, that you're just not getting them to the meeting to be voted on, you're losing the sale, right? So
Right.
We had a sales meeting, and I before the internet world out there at the podcast listeners just crucify me on this, but it is a sales function. That what we are selling is the camaraderie, the action, the being part of something that's bigger than you, the public service, the community, sense of community. These are the things that we're selling, right?
Right. And what we're buying is that individual's time.
Right.
The single most valuable commodity on the face of this earth.
Yeah, that's the price. The price is the time.
Yeah.
And the product is this organization and the benefits to the individual that becomes a member. And those benefits range all the way from a feel-good feeling of a sense of belonging to certifications that can lead to a career.
Right. Or just a place to belong, family, networking, community service. I mean, we had a kind of unrelated discussion where yesterday we were talking, me and Jesse both were talking to a young girl who's senior in high school, right?
Yes.
And starting to realize that she probably needs to put on her adulting hat and adulting sunglasses and
take a swing at adulting.
Well, this whole adulting thing is really overrated. And there was a point there where and her parents tagged along, which is fine.
No, I think it was good.
Yeah. Particularly in this case, it was actually really good. And what did we learn there, Jesse? I can talk to adults a lot better than I can young teenagers.
Well, the problem is the young teenagers. There is a technology gap in communication there, and we're going to struggle with this, and they're going to struggle integrating because they don't know how to pick up a phone and call somebody. Right? That's a foreign concept. They didn't know their phone made that noise.
Or handle basic communication with a almost middle-aged man and a barely middle-aged man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of awkward. And as we trudged through the woods on that, we bounced out the other side to an open meadow and light sun and a fair breeze. But the purpose of mentioning this is one, you got to figure out how to communicate to everyone. Okay. That's important because you're driving away your potential sales if you don't figure that out. The other part of this is you need to figure out your messaging, and to kind of round this whole critter back to us. Generally, the mother, she'd asked this question, and she didn't say it this way, but this is what she was asking: is what does the organization mean to you? And I just told her, I said, every single person, if you could ask every single person on our organization, and every single one of them is going to give you a slightly different answer as to what does that mean to them. And I think that that's a actual recruiting point that I think a lot of departments forget to pay a little more attention to in when you're doing your recruiting or your sales pitch. Is as much as you need to talk about the organization, you also need to let the other person speak. And you need to be aware enough to realize what they're saying and what their needs are. And in our particular case, one subject, 3 people. So, and you got to make the sales pitch to all of them at the exact same time.
Right.
And to poke fun at us again, I feel sorry for our little applicant, because there was a point there where
she was ready to crawl under the table.
Yeah. She didn't appreciate. She hadn't had anyone give her a line of questioning or response back to that ever in her life. And there was nothing weird, wild, or terrible about what I was asking.
Address.
Yeah, I just simply asked, where do you live? And I mean, we're talking about vapor locked up. And, tried to clarify it. Okay, you live in a house, right? Where's that at? And we just spiraled from there. And I glanced over at the parents to kind of see what their reaction was. Yeah, they were just smiling at me. So I went ahead and took it one step further and just told her. I said, the fact of the matter is that when we're on scene, these are adult situations. And if someone asks a question, it's not give a stupid rhetorical, not inappropriate, because there was nothing she did that was inappropriate, but it was so far out of the realm of typical
right
response and reaction that I just told her, I'm like, that ends now. That's the end of that, because you were an adult and you were expected to be an adult, and unfortunately for you, you were going to be in very adult situations, and you may not have a ton of life experience, but you were there as the help, and you were expected to act accordingly. So get used to that right now.
It was comical. It was good though, and it's one of those things that this girl's parents could have told her this 5,000 times.
If I had to guess, they probably, between the two of them, have said it 10,000.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have made a difference, but in this situation, she obviously there had to be a response, because the awkwardness of the situation with no response was just it was a death spiral. It was great.
Yeah,
and to remind everyone, we're asking, where do you live?
Right.
Not what's this cubic root of 487.
Yeah, or anything remotely in the realm of inappropriate. We're talking basic adult questions like, oh, you're looking at joining. Well, where do you live?
In a house?
And looking at her parents for help.
Yeah.
It was awesome. I'm sorry. I kind of actually enjoyed it.
So that, and just going down this rabbit hole a little bit longer, you know, I'm born in 1975. I am straight up Gen X. That is what I am. And when they talk about feral children and you weren't allowed in the house and you came home when the street lights came on, like literally that is me. Like I would leave my house in the morning and venture all over the world inside of my town or wherever my bicycle took me, and I would come home at dark. Like to say there was no parenting would be wrong. There was parenting, correct? But,
yeah, well, every single parent in the street was watching after everyone else's kids.
right. There was parenting involved, but we were truly free range, right? So, you know, you had to figure out on your own that when you stick your finger in the light socket, it hurts. That there wasn't like 14 different safety devices mounted to this thing to keep your finger out of it. You just walked over there and stuck your finger in the light socket and went, "Oh, I'm not going to do that again."
Yeah. Oh God, that was terrible.
Like,
Jimmy, get over here.
Yeah, you should try this. So we learned, I think we learned more life lessons from an earlier age just from like experience, right?
I was just about to counter that. It wasn't necessarily life lessons as much as it was just the raw experience of getting to experience things.
Right.
And people and situations and danger and fun and on and on.
And a good example of this, I was probably, I don't know, freshman in high school, some 8th, 9th, 10th grade, I don't know. And we're roaming through town like we do. And, hey, look, those people have a basketball goal right there. Hey, there's a basketball right there. Hey, there's a trampoline out here. We're over here bouncing off the trampoline, dunking the basketball. It's a random house. Like, not completely random. We knew who lived there, right? But, like, we're not invited to come play basketball at this house. We're just playing basketball at this house. Well, I learned a lot about gravity that day and break my arm.
Yeah.
It's broke. Like, there's a softball-sized knot in my forearm where my arm is broken. You know, I'm, 15 years old, somewhere in that 14, 15-year-old range. It's 10 blocks from my house. There's no cell phone.
Yeah.
I walked to my house to use the phone to call somebody to take me to a hospital for my broken arm. Like, that's how this worked. You know, you kind of had to just figure it out. It hurt a lot. I remember that. I had a radius ulna both fracture, just mid-arm, mid-forearm. Walked 10 blocks home. I held it over my head. It hurt bad. To go use a phone to call my grandmother to take me to a hospital for my broke arm.
And of course, she probably told you at first just to rub dirt in it.
Yeah, oh yeah, no. I'll be there in a little while, you know, like
Yeah.
I'm at the knitting club or whatever's, you know, going on. We're playing canasta, you know. So it just a different realm, and once you start thinking about that and you think about kind of these generational differences, so evidently my generation that had to walk 10 blocks back with a broken arm because there wasn't a way to get a hold of anybody, they became the Uber helicopter parents that inserts the microchip in their kids so they can tell where they're at
Right.
every waking moment. And the kids just don't get to have those experiences. And my wife is that way, just, you know, constantly worried about where my daughter is and what she's doing. And I'm like, she's fine. I was in other countries when I was in high school. Like I left the United States and no one knew it happened. So so it's just a different thing. Now, if they would have known it happened, I would have probably been in a world of trouble. But yeah, no.
Yeah, there's a difference between knowing and things happening, though.
Right.
The where all of this leads to is that we've been able to grow our organization, but we have been stumbling into a new problem with the growth of our organization.
And that's not just the growth of our organization, because our growth and our benefit of efforts is working in the departments around us, and it's helping everyone around us to grow.
You know, and that might be actually a really kind of valid point to talk about from this marketing and recruiting discussion. Don't get me wrong, all of our efforts are entirely self-served, because they are. But there's spillover and benefit because of the way our marketing works and the way that our retention works to all the other organizations that surround us. So they've grown too.
Yeah.
Some of them quite a bit. And what we're stumbling into now is, I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're a real small department struggling on this front and you're struggling, you're probably going to hate us after this podcast. Because what we're turning into now is we have too many people on scene.
Right.
And we had, it's been, at least a week ago now, 10 days ago.
Yeah, a little over 2 weeks.
We had a
commercial structure
fire. Not a gigantic commercial fire, but it was a commercial building.
Just call it 5,000 square feet.
That'll work. Okay. An advanced fire, I will say that.
Yeah.
This was a needed tactics and operations and consideration to all the spicy, woolly things that you can get into on a large cabinet shop fire with glues, lacquers, and thinners, and then the product itself, and then all their standing materials inside the building and stains and
decades of dust,
and
you
on and on. Well, the problem is that the first chief on scene immediately bumped it up to 2 alarms. And then within seconds, he bumped it up to 3 alarms. And fast forward 20 minutes, and there's literally 25 apparatus on scene and 70 people for a 5,000 square foot building. And you're getting the chaos of just so many hands on scene that freelancing started to become a gigantic problem. The command structure that was in place was never intended to be handling that amount of volume of people. No one got hurt. It wasn't a big deal. But it was
an awakening, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that I've been noticing for a little while. This isn't the first fire I've noticed this at, but we start thinking about what's an appropriate response. And then you've got to balance that and kick that off of, well, everybody wants to go.
Right.
And we don't want to discourage people from going, because that is also bad.
But we're also a high call volume area.
Right.
Particularly for structure fires.
Yeah.
We are high call volume.
And it becomes a recipe for disaster is what it does. And I don't know that we're there at the moment, but we're flirting with it.
I'll even step out on that limb and say that I think we've gotten lucky that nothing catastrophic has happened. The only reason I think nothing catastrophic has happened is because our people are trained.
Well, but is luck a tactic?
No, I wouldn't use it as a tactic.
I mean, that's what we're relying on at this moment. Is
Right. Right.
Luck is the tactic. And, nobody is doing anything that's offensively dangerous.
Correct.
On the surface, right? It's just the fact that so much of it is happening that there's not a way to be a cohesive, managed plan is not possible. You're just going off of training and built-in instilled tactics. There's not the opportunity to analyze the situation, to deviate from the standard tactics. You're doing the standard tactics, but there's no way to augment that for any additional hazards.
I'm trying to think.
So it becomes
6th, 7th fire that we've had.
That we've noticed this. And it's so to me, the operation and the command is in a feedback loop, right? So
Right.
you do something and you look for the results and the feedback, and that you build your operation and your operational tactics based upon the conditions, the changing conditions, and the progress or lack of progress that we're having.
Correct.
So at the point where you no longer have control of everything that's happening, you end up with too many variables to know what is and what isn't actually working and being successful.
Right. Meaning freelancing is out of hand.
Right. And
Yeah.
and I don't know. I'm to the point where it's in my mind, and I want to address it in some manner. I don't know what the manner to address it. I mean, short of just standing on top of the deal and banging my foot and yelling at everybody, stop doing this. There has to be a solution, because
for us, the solution is simple. And it is. It sounds stupid when I say it. So when we have a typical structure fire, what we tone out is a grand total of 3 departments out of the gate. Okay. Those 3 departments are going to show up. Okay. In our particular case, in combination with us and some other really strong departments that we have in Hood County, what we get is just those 3 departments are putting 25, 35 people on scene. And we're talking about a room and contents fire. Okay? And one thing that we're kind of bad at is canceling units that are en route, because, well, why cancel them?
Well, and the other side of that is sometimes when you cancel them, they just don't cancel because they want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And, at that point, you've already had a failure of the system. That is
Right.
the first failure. And I get it. I don't want to cancel anybody. I want them all to go. But, I mean, short of having a bleacher truck where everybody can sit in bleachers and watch what's happening.
Right.
What is the purpose? What is the reason for all those people to be there? Because if you don't have a purpose or a reason to be there, you're part of the problem,
Right.
not the solution.
And for me, what we do is we just start knocking other departments off of the alarm.
Yeah.
The initial tone out.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest, simplest way to approach it. Or you just limit to one apparatus. I mean, if we look at, you go into any city department, right? Residential single-story home is going to get a couple engines and a ladder, and that's it. That's going to be the response. Maybe a battalion. That's the initial response, and we're sending 6, 8 engines, 2, 3 ladders,
Right.
7 tankers, 4 battalions,
It's so overkill that it's not
and a
even,
boat.
well, and a sink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I know it sounds like what we're talking about is absurd, but you just have to see some of these scenes to see that, like, this would literally be a 3 alarm response at a major city for a room and contents fire.
In a single wide trailer house.
Right. Built in 1937.
Yeah.
That's vacant.
Yeah. It's I don't know. And you can call them first world problems or whatever we're having here. But it's legitimately a problem, and it's not the kind of problem you can just kind of turn a blind eye to and not address, because I mean, we're getting to the point where we're seeing single individuals working alone entering a burning structure because there's so much whatever happening that they're just trying to find their buddies, or their buddies are over there rehabbing and they don't want to rehab, and they just go back and re-engage. And it's fundamentally wrong. It's dangerous. We're going to end up in a big problem. We're going to kill one of them. And I don't know. I'm certainly not used to this where I come from. You know, you get 7, 8, 10 people and you work like hell, and you go out and you get a new bottle and you go back in, and you go out and get a new bottle and go back in, and you do that 5 times, and maybe you got the fire knocked down, and you just, that is not the norm. And I realize it's not the norm, and I realize you're out there listening to us going, man, what a bunch of schmucks want to bring their problems to us like that. But it's real. It's a real problem. And it's just as dangerous and just as bad as not having enough people.
And using going in and going out, going in and going out, going in and going out.
Yeah.
Because I've been on the other side of that. Our area used to be like that. Working fire, and there'd be 4 people on scene.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with this.
And you worked. I know it firsthand. So I don't know what the difference is. I can honestly tell you that the multitude of people is beneficial, and I think one of the answers may be getting more to a shift-based program, countywide, breaking this out. I don't know, but somehow it's got to be managed. And we're talking about this today on this podcast. It'll go up next week, sometime into the week next week. I mean, this is a conversation that we're going to be having locally too. And
yeah, we've got a chiefs meeting in, let's just call it 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It'll be coming up there. For me, the way to fix it is to drop 2 departments off the alarm and let the incoming unit determine what they want for additional units.
Yeah. And the problem is some of them are going to want that bigger response, and that's fine. If that's what they want to manage and that's what they want in their area, or that's what they think they need, they should have that. But for us in our area, we're to the point where we shouldn't send any more than a command and 1 person, because other than that, there's too daggum many people.
Right.
Yeah, we should just leave our engines and ladders parked in the bays and not wear them out.
Yeah, no joke. All joking aside, if everyone else wants to use their equipment and break it and not understand the cost of what it takes to actually replace that equipment and to be able to, quite frankly, safety your people, that is one way to do it.
Yeah.
And I know, like I said, it sounds absurd, but again, 5,000 square foot building, 70 people on scene. That's how many we had, 70.
So it equates to nearly our entire department being there.
Yeah.
And, we have call volumes that we have to keep up with and response totals that each individual has to make. So our people are wanting to be there too, but at the same time, it's almost not necessary. It's weird. I can tell you this is the weirdest conversation I ever thought I'd have to have. And it's the unintended consequences. Does that mean we're going to stop the marketing and stop the efforts to recruit?
Nope.
Absolutely not.
And we're going to keep growing.
Yeah.
But it's pretty obvious to me that we got to get pretty serious about our command and control tactics, getting IC set up. I mean,
And we have IC and we have these things, but it's not
good enough.
It's not good enough, right? It's just not good enough. It's not good enough for the amount of resources that we're managing. We're way outside of the span of control. I mean, to the tune of quintuple.
Oh, I was going to do some math real quick. I just wanted to check something.
Yeah, just check that. 5 to 7 being a normal.
One firefighter per 70 square feet.
Yeah.
Now, to cover a 5,000 square foot building. So basically everyone could have held hands and just took a breath and extinguished the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and the kicker is this isn't the first one that we've been on where it's like this. We had a little itty bitty 2-story house fire. It was a herd as the crews battled each other going through this house. I mean, it's comical and terrible. And, you need to almost start going in there with like a snow shovel to start bonking people and just be like, get out. There's 31 people in here. You're not doing anything. Get out.
Yeah. There's people sitting on the couch playing cards and, somebody's getting impaled with a pike pole.
Right.
Because we thought you were sealing. Like, it's ludicrous. Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you this. One thing that I've done is we have a huge department in the Metroplex where one of their assistant chiefs retired just recently. Good dude, really knowledgeable. Yes. And I needed to call him for some other business, but we pretty quickly started talking about this call. And one thing that I've talked about with him for years is trying to get kind of like a frontline officer class set up, but also a IC class and, just it's the whole package. And the kicker is, and I do believe this, I think it's pointless. Pointless is a strong word here. I think there's other alternatives than just sending people to a 98-hour officer development class.
Right.
I think there's some other things that we can do, like maybe utilize this chief's 37 years experience in one of the largest departments in the United States, and the man's heartstrings are made of nothing but training fibers, and he desperately wants to do this. Maybe, I don't know, turn him loose and have him do that. And combine that with the other chiefs that also have a crap load of education and experience, and just have a real honest sit down, talk through, and maybe that class takes 4 or 5 weekends to do. And then by the end of it, you have this frontline officer class in place.
Yeah, and it's a good summertime project, right? Where it's too hot to be outside. And, you don't want to do live fire because it's literally 1,000 degrees outside.
Right.
It's a good opportunity to do some of this. And unfortunately, it needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. So there's got to be some kind of stopgap understanding. And trust me, when this conversation comes to light, there's going to be some very emotional discussions with several departments about this.
Oh yeah, no, they'll be hot and bothered over this.
But
I'm actually not half tempted to just make the changes to the box alarm and not tell anyone.
yeah,
Just to completely avoid this because everyone's going to feel like that I'm picking on them and I'm not.
yeah, yeah.
So,
It's kind of crazy. And like I said, sitting in the center of Texas with 4 people on a structure fire, I never thought I would have to have this exact conversation.
right, well that's because volunteerism's dead
Right?
and it's not effective.
Yeah,
And it's really just a detriment to your community.
yeah. Literally, we could have stomped this fire out.
Right. 100% volunteer. No paid staff. So, yeah. I think that we can continue to grow, evolve, and benefit our citizens, meanwhile, keeping our people's best interest and safety as a top priority.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, no one ever expected success.
No. Well, no one does. No one, oh, not no one. That is a very limited amount of organizations that are in our circumstance, but are also very willing to assume the burden of responsibility.
To figure out the answers to the problems that
Right.
that creates, right? Yeah,
I mean, I'll never say that we solved it, the recruiting volunteers equation, because that equation's always shifting and changing. But we have found a solution that is benefiting us today and tomorrow. And now we're ready for the next problem.
right.
Probably the cleanest way to say that. And we have a problem and we need to address it.
Yep. You got anything else, Matt?
That's it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good on that.
Okay.
I think we got our work cut out for us, and honestly, amongst the other 9 million things that we always have going on constantly, we can't rest and wait for this one. This one's got to move to the top of the pile. It's been in the pile, and it's been working its way to the top. It's got to shift and be moved to the top of the pile of things to address and figure out.
Yep. So, with that said, this is Matt.
This is Jesse.
And we appreciate your time, energy, and effort if you're still listening. And if you ever feel like it, throw us a like, click, subscribe, hit the reminders, and comments are always appreciated. And you can find us on YouTube at It Tastes Like Burning. You can find us at Facebook at It Tastes Like Burning. And you can shoot us an email at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.
And in that email, tell us how big of jerks we are for having this problem.
Yeah, how terrible we are.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Good night.